Government shutdown is looming. Why can't these Republicans and Democrats get their business together and keep our government functioning? Welcome to the Between the Lines podcast, your weekly lesson on how to approach an uncertain world with positivity and balance. I'm Nicky P here with my good friends and money brains Luke Tatum and Rob Brayton from Perfect Spiral Capital. Stick around till the end of the video for their free toolkit and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy our video. Gentlemen, is your inner Ron Swanson grinning huge and cheering, slash it, slash it?
You bet. So happy government shutdown, everybody. Cheers, toast, everybody. Wonderful. Okay. I was just telling you guys right before we started, but we used to celebrate this. We used to bake a cake. We would have a government shutdown cake, and it was a whole big thing. We're a little stressed out about a few things that we don't have to get into on the air this year, but just in general, like what a happy time. This is really my favorite annual holiday. So, how do you feel, Rob?
Yeah, I agree with you. I tend to be fairly happy about them in some respects. I mean, in some ways, I wish they would last a lot longer, so people could actually realize how much they don't need the government. At the same time, I do know that there are certain aspects of government that some people, miss or would like to see stay around, which includes, some of the national parks, things like that, if somebody's traveling. But, outside of that, I'm not really not all that worried. It's not like the federal workers don't get paid. They get their back pay when things get pushed through. I think the more disappointing part of it that I tend to think about is most of the time nothing actually gets solved for. We just kick the can down the road and no real resolution comes out. No one actually does anything other than continue to perpetuate our inflationary system that much bigger.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so classic government to say, well, we're taking away your parks until we get this solved. I mean, everyone surely remembers the COVID era, right? 2020. I mean, you have people, I had friends cutting chains for locked parks to let people back in. Like, that's the safest place you could have possibly been, is in natural sunlight, which is a natural disinfectant, out there in nature, beaches, places like that. I mean, what a wonderful place to be when there's an epidemic, however you feel about that. And yet it's a pain point, oh my gosh, we planned this vacation. We drove all the way to Yellowstone or whatever, and we're not going to get to even go. What a terrible thing. It's just like it's inflicted on us, to try to make us regret that we let the government get to this point or something.
Well, and they're very honest about the fact that, we want to make it hurt so that you understand how much you need us. So we specifically target these things. Now, mind you, why do you need someone to open a plot of land to you? Why can't you just go into the plot of land that supposedly you own anyways?
Right. The whole myth of we are the government, right? Well, if I paid for it, and that's why I have to pay taxes, is so that I have access to public things, and this is a public thing. It says right there, public park. I'm the public. What am I missing here? It's a little weird.
I like to look at it too as the vast majority of these things that are out there that are sort of on shutdown because of the government, how many of those could actually be privatized? Like, manning the parks can and should be probably privatized instead of being part of the federal budget. It would, for one, it'd probably be a lot more cost effective, and two, potentially better service.
But Rob, evil capitalists are going to charge us hundreds of thousands of dollars to get in to see nature. We're not going to be able to see nature if we give it to private companies.
Those evil capitalists might mean nature hangs on a little bit longer by actually protecting it too.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't have a real devil's advocate argument because I align with you guys, but
I did have a demographic here, guys, that is probably not happy about government shutdown. And that is the 2 to 3% of Americans that are paid directly by the government. Those people probably aren't happy.
They are the world or the nation's largest employer, right? Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you're should they really be the nation's largest employer? I mean, I beg to disagree, but that's because we, the people, have let the scope go way too large, and we've abdicated our responsibility to do something about it and hold people accountable. But then again, there's a lot of corruption and different things that have worked their way in over time too that have allowed that to take place.
I don't know how much we, the people, can actually affect things because, we, the people, aren't the ones that put the people into the Supreme Court that said anything that traveling between states, whether it's exchanging money for dollars or not, is commerce, making the Commerce Clause affect absolutely everything that happens in life. Like it's, oh, you wanna not do business? Well, that's affecting commerce, so we have to force you into business.
Right. I mean, there's even that story, and I can't remember what state it is, but a man wanted to drink milk that he got from his own cows on his own land, and the argument in court was, well, this is interstate commerce because he could have sold it in a different state. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like there's not a short list, unfortunately, of extremely ludicrous examples of interstate commerce being used to justify, all kinds of nonsense. I mean, to your point though, Rob, like the DC Beltway and, the huge number of people that are paid directly by the government or who are federal, contractors that like a couple of steps removed from the federal government. Technically, they're paid by a private company, but also technically not really.
2 to 3% that I was touting didn't even get to that part. Well,
The contractor side of it is like ridiculous, right?
Right.
It's probably
I think it jumps
even
up
much
to
larger.
You talk amongst yourselves while I look this one up because I'm curious.
Okay.
Now.
Okay. I will say, I certainly don't want people to think we're like completely insensitive jerks. It's a situation where like we get it. It does impact people on a day-to-day basis. But what that should tell you is maybe I should consider what I'm doing. If my job is required to have the federal government pay me, am I actually contributing to the economy? It is a more of a fundamental type question because you're relying on other people's money in order to get paid. And I know that doesn't come across the best, but that's the reality of what we can see and what some of these people are feeling at this moment.
2 to 3%, guys. Not to cut you off here, but you're gonna really love this number. 2 to 3% is like what they actually employ. No, when you look for what percentage of the GDP is the U.S. government fund. This is what I searched for. To which I have 6.75 trillion in fiscal year 2024, which equals 23% of the gross domestic product the government directly pays for.
Wow, that's some good Keynesian economics right there. That's prosperity. What is it? CIG equals Y, right? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. It's, hey, we got government spending. We're looking great. So that's shockingly bad.
Just based on what we know about how the government spends our dollars efficiently, like that's 25% of our economy. We know that we're overpaying for whatever we're getting.
And we're paying for it not willingly. It's being taken from us. So go ahead and choose not to pay it and see what happens. And, tell me how that goes because it's not fun.
Right. A couple of points. So some estimates, I mean, there's a lot of ways to estimate this, but some estimates would say that it's about 7 times less efficient for the government to do something than for a private firm to do it, right? If you have a, charity for the poor or what have you, you're wasting most, 6/7 of the money is going to fund cronies and, pay for all this nonsense. And it just kind of gets sucked up by the black hole that is the government. And then, yeah, some money does go to people that are in a bad situation, but at what cost? That question never gets like really asked, And so that's bad. And then you're talking about people working for the government, being paid by the government, and knowing, that maybe this is not something I should be doing. Hey, am I really contributing anything to like benefiting mankind? But beyond that, you have to know that a government shutdown is a risk if you take that job. If you work in the oil field, you have to know that the price of oil is going to affect your work. If you work for an airline, you have to know that seasonally demand for flying is going to be variable, right? You have to know these things. That's part of having the job. Working for the federal government, it's not like nobody has ever seen a government shutdown before, right? It's my favorite annual holiday. Like I can't stress, this is very routine, And so to be outraged as though this has never happened and should never have happened, like it's just so weird to me. Like we do this every time. It's the same old song and dance.
And that's one of the things about that's what we joke, or that we treat it as a holiday in our world. But so like you're just illustrating that we have actual data telling us what shutdowns historically have done. So I'm just going to read a few little factoids that I pulled up here. By all means, if I have these wrong, I'm doing the same AI search everybody else does. But yes, please correct us in the comments. The longest shutdown ever was 35 days in 2018 and 2019. And its total effect on GDP was, drumroll please, 0.4% for an entire month, 1/12 of the year. It managed to save. Mind you, how is something shaved that little off when it's 25% of the economy, like 23% of the economy?
Well, I mean, there's the difference between essential and non-essential, right? I mean, and then there's the back pay when people come back. I mean, we talked about that. And so it's like, did this actually do anything? I mean, yes, but also kind of no, if you abstract enough.
So they say in 2013, the coming back from the last big downturn, the GDP was reduced by 2 to 6 billion in the fourth quarter, and led to 120,000 fewer private sector jobs the following month. The problem is that these are all short-term losses, and they're always recouped by the fact that, well, the government's not going to just not pay people, so it goes back and gives the money out anyway. So shutdown never does even what it's supposed to do. Like, those people will always still get their money.
Yeah, I hate to bring up COVID again. I'm sorry to cut you off, Nick, but like we had, catastrophic loss of jobs, right, with COVID and stuff because places were forced to be closed, obviously. A completely logical consequence. And then they have the audacity to go up on stage in front of these pulpits or what have you and run victory laps when the jobs numbers look better after the shutdowns are over. Like, look at all the jobs we added to the economy. Okay, I mean, what are we doing here? Again, it's just like if you make people lose their jobs,
it's easy to make number go up when you make the lowest number ever.
Yeah, right. It's the famous Milton Friedman quote, right? He goes to China and he sees all these people working with shovels to build that dam in China, and they're bragging about their unemployment numbers. And he's like, well, hey, you could have 0% unemployment forever if you just gave everyone spoons, right? Because they'll never finish. The job will never be done. So, like, wow, so impressive. You have manual laborers with shovels, like in the West, you would have, actual heavy equipment building the dam, and it might actually get finished. So, what are we doing again?
Let's teach a little micro lesson here, folks. This is called Why You Have Humans Instead of AI. To make little notes like this, I have one of the little pieces of information I looked up before the podcast on this. Democrats demand any health care agreement be ironclad and in legislation, citing a lack of trust with Republicans who've consistently tried to undermine bipartisan agreements. This is on transparency. Now, if I remember correctly, when Obamacare was first passed, these are also you've got to pass it to see what's in it, people.
That's Pelosi, right? One of the best, most quotable moments in history.
And healthcare has gotten so much more affordable since then, too.
Oh,
right?
Thank you. Yeah, Rob, I just love it. I love my affordable healthcare. Yeah.
A couple other little facts I found entertaining in here. Since 1977, the government has failed to meet funding deadlines 20 times, with shutdowns averaging 8 days in length.
I was just looking at that point, Nick, and I think something that we need to keep in mind, considering we have all that time prior to 1977, the government never shut down before. So, and everything seemed to be okay. So there was no shutdown prior to then, you know.
And when did we go off the gold standard again?
1971.
So another little, this one's probably my favorite point that I've seen over here, and it's that, so historically speaking, now mind you, the S&P 500 has actually risen 4.4% on average during shutdowns. So somehow the stock market seems to work better. Like I'm kind of thinking, man, I need to go put my shit in an index fund right now and just see what happens. One of the other points, how is this different, Rob? We were talking about this a little bit before. How is this particular shutdown different than ones in the past? It has people real scared about it.
Well, I think the things that we've seen, or at least some of the rhetoric that's been coming out, has been that, you know, Trump has threatened to actually make some of it permanent. And it depends on which side of the line you fall on here. But generally speaking, like if we actually made some of the stuff permanent, would it really be that bad? And again, this is not speaking to somebody personally impacted, but thinking for the quote unquote greater good of our country, meaning that we would actually shrink the size of the government. That's not a bad thing. Shrinking the size of the government actually benefits everybody that lives in this country. It just doesn't feel like it in the short term. And I think that's the thing that most people tend to be afraid of, because all this fear gets spread that, oh, well, this is going to go away, that's going to go away, and all this other stuff that just doesn't end up happening the same way the way that a lot of people make it seem.
Well, I'm going to actually argue something a little bit different here, Rob. There are those 23% of the population that weren't happy to collect a government paycheck. That's all they need to aspire to. Get a little overpaid to do not a real job. But the bottom line is there is that part of our population that does exist. People that are more than happy to live off the dole and, you know, not really try for any more than that, because, you know, why do I need to? Now, I don't think that's personally any way to live, but, you know, we are trying in some ways to, you know, extrapolate our values to perhaps more of the world than is realistic. When, you know, we do make suggestions that, you know, they're better off. You know, they probably are materially better off, but, you know, however their brain works doesn't interpret the same values that you or I have. And so they're, you know, not getting the same thing out of it, sadly.
Yeah, the way I look at it in some ways is that we have this group or this portion of people that are kind of living, you know, like you mentioned, living off the dole, so to speak. But if we think about the opportunity cost of that, how do we not know that one of those individuals, had they not been inspired or challenged, couldn't be the next Elon Musk, couldn't be the next person to bring something forward, right? Like that's the part that is, you know, crazy to me that a lot of people aren't thinking about.
They all could be, and we can do what we can to help give people a hand up. But those same people, everything that we're going to say from this point on is completely useless for, because it requires thinking and planning and hard work, and more than anything, it requires responsibility, which is the last thing people like that want to take for themselves. And this is the point where we go, what's the positive for all this? What are the good things for people? I mean, what's funny is the list that I asked to print out when I was from an Austro-libertarian and from a banking practitioner perspective. What are the key positives to focus on? I really thought the AI was going to struggle. I'm going to be honest. I thought it was going to give me a couple things that made no sense. Instead, I get government dysfunction as validation, opportunity in chaos, self-reliance vindication, regulatory paralysis, as you said, exposing the dependency that people have on here, and a permanent reduction possibility. So, in all of this, malinvestment exposure is another one that comes up here, moral hazard, like time preference lesson that everyone needs to learn. It's just, I was frankly like, wow, it's did a pretty good job of summing up my beliefs, and all this stuff works.
No, I dig it. But if somehow you're listening to this particular section of this particular podcast and you're a person who, your entire living comes from a government paycheck, look, this is just an invitation to look at things from a different angle. And, government jobs are notoriously hard to get fired from, right? You get kind of in there and you just kind of can coast in a lot of times, especially city governments, things like that. You're just kind of good to go if you land the job, and you can climb that ladder however slowly that system works wherever you're at. But, there's so much more greener grass, so to speak, on the other side out there. And it's not to say that every private sector job is objectively the most efficient thing ever. I mean, there's plenty of waste in the private sector. The thing about the private sector is that it actually discovers dead-end jobs, things that aren't helping people, and it reallocates and it adapts and changes, right, to bring more value to more people. And I mean, if you like to help people, if you're in the government because your heart is in it, and you want to benefit your local community or what have you, great. There's an even better way to do that, and it's to get involved in a private sector job. What skills you have, put those to direct use helping paying customers.
Overpaying to have a private company pave your roads. Go get paid exceptionally well by that private company to pave those roads yourself.
That's right. Run a road. I mean, local governments pay contractors to actually build the roads, go do that.
So, all kidding aside, gentlemen, what else we got to say on this? Or, I mean, it should be pretty obvious where our perspective is, and what we look at as what are the negatives? I didn't hear any negatives personally.
Look, I mean, we don't want to beat you over the head with our beliefs or what have you, but I think that's all we've done this episode, and that it's just how it's going to be sometimes. Rob, you have any final thoughts?
I would say if you are impacted or this is something that impacts people, there are ways to help insulate yourself against it. And you can do that by structuring your personal finances, financial scenario in a way that helps provide that insulation, helps provide, against some of those impacts. And I would argue that that's important not only in the public sector, but also the private sector, because it happens. And there's ways to insure yourself, to structure yourself so that those things don't impact you as much. And you can make it through and not have to give everything up or, stop the compounding on, your plans. Like, that stuff doesn't have to happen if you think about things differently. And that's a lot about what we do, of course. But I would say that's one aspect of the ways that you can think about things differently in these situations to help protect yourself, protect your family on a more micro scale that isn't reliant on all these macro situations that are occurring that, frankly, you or I can't just jump out and fix. So just something else to consider there.
Yeah. And I mean, I have friends that get paid by the government. I have friends that are on the DC Beltway, and stuff like that. And they agree with me, though. I should say that they're libertarians too. It's not like they don't see, what's going on. And so it is a good opportunity for them to do what they're doing. They don't control who the president is. They don't control who is in Congress any more than anybody else. And so it's, what do you do within the system that you currently have? And that's where we can really help. You and I, the whole Perfect Spiral Capital team, we're here to navigate those things with you. And you don't have to just clock in, clock out, and try to ignore the fact that things like this can come up on the horizon. So, Nick, you got anything else?
Well, what I've got is, why don't you tell these people what the first step is to you helping them guide and navigate those waters?
Hey, you bet. Yeah. So thanks so much for joining us on another episode of the Between the Lies podcast. If you're interested in all this, if you watch this whole episode, then you're definitely interested in the future of money, probably your money, and we can help with that. So we have a free toolkit. You'll get lots and lots of freebies, including a copy of our book. And that's over at perfectspiralcapital.com/podcast. So be sure to check that out.